like you. Be strong to hold the powers of the sun. To dream, believe in strength. Now I'm the only one.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Diorpop. Tonight, let me ask you something gently. Have you ever felt that a story doesn't need to be loud to be meaningful? That sometimes, the quiet moments are the ones that stay with us the longest? Because tonight, we're not here for noise. We're here for pauses. For unfinished sentences. For feelings that don't always know how to explain themselves. This is a story about walking slowly in a world that keeps rushing forward. About carrying dreams that are still fragile. And learning to love the process even when the ending is unclear. So take a deep breath. Set everything else aside for a moment. And let this story meet you exactly where you are. Please, write it down. That night was not truly silent. There were long pauses between words, as if someone was carefully arranging their thoughts before daring to speak. The sentences did not always come out neatly. Some were fragmented, some sounded like quiet murmurs. Yet in those imperfect moments, honesty revealed itself, raw, unpolished, and undeniably real. There were so many things waiting to be said, but not all of them were easy to explain. Feelings that had been buried for too long often escaped only in fragments, like pieces of a heart falling one by one. They were not always beautiful, not always logical, but they were sincere. In a world that demands everything to move fast, there was someone who chose to walk slowly. Not because they were weak, but because they wanted to understand every step they took. They were trying to build something, perhaps a dream, perhaps a quiet hope, amid the noise of people who did not always care to understand. Some judged, some mocked, and others simply watched from a distance, untouched and indifferent. At times, the struggle felt ironic. From the outside, it looked strong and impressive, yet inside, it trembled. Like a tower built with faith but shaken by doubt. There were days when effort felt meaningless, when exhaustion arrived without warning, and when a silent question echoed in the heart. Is all of this really necessary? But life rarely offers immediate answers. Learning became a lonely process. There were no cheers, no applause. Only a person facing themselves, repeating the same mistakes, falling in nearly the same places, and standing up again with legs slightly weaker than before. Each failure felt like a small slap, yet also a reminder that they were still alive, still trying. Among all of it, the simplest moments were often the heaviest. When the body was tired, when the mind felt crowded, when a smile had to be forced so the world would not ask too many questions. People often think strength means never breaking, when in truth, real strength is standing even when the cracks are visible. There were days when they wanted to stop. Completely stop. To put down every burden, release every expectation, and simply exist as an ordinary human without labels. Yet every time that thought appeared, something held them back. A memory, a promise once whispered to themselves in a moment of hope. Perhaps that was the quietest form of love. Love for the process. Love for an unfinished dream. Love for oneself who kept enduring even when the world felt unbearably loud. Memories surfaced like flashes of light. Awkward laughter, trembling hands, moments when the heartbeat grew too loud to ignore. All of it wove together into a long story about being human, not perfect, often unsure, but always trying to be honest with one's own heart. Not everything can be measured by results. There are struggles no camera ever sees, tears that are never recorded, prayers spoken only in silence. The world often forgets that behind every achievement are sleepless nights and thoughts that refuse to rest. Sometimes, all a person wants is to be heard, not judged. To be understood, not concluded. To be reassured that what they are doing, even if imperfect, is born from sincerity. Life is not a race that must be won. It is more like a long journey filled with unexpected turns. Some roads feel smooth, others painfully sharp. Yet every step, no matter how small, still moves us forward. And somewhere along that journey, a quiet realization begins to grow. That it is okay to be tired. It is okay to be confused. It is okay to pause for a moment, as long as you do not completely give up. Romance does not always appear as sweet words or happy endings. Sometimes it lives in silent resilience, in the courage to wake up every morning even when the heart feels heavy. In the choice to keep believing, despite repeated disappointments. In the end, everything returns to one simple thing: endurance. Enduring in your own way. Enduring without always appearing strong. Enduring while remaining human, able to feel, to hurt, and to love. Perhaps one day, when all the noise finally fades, someone will look back and smile softly. Not because everything worked out perfectly, but because they did not give up when everything nearly collapsed. And that is where the beauty lies. Not in the final result, but in the journey walked with honesty. In a heart that stayed gentle despite being bruised by life. In the courage to keep moving forward, slowly, quietly, even alone. This story does not end with celebration or applause. It ends with calm. With a breath that can finally be taken more deeply. With a small belief that as long as someone is still willing to try, the story is not over. Maybe it never has to be. And maybe, before we truly leave this moment behind, there's one last thing worth remembering. Some stories are not meant to be solved. They are meant to be felt. You don't have to understand every chapter right now. You don't have to know where all of this is leading. Sometimes just staying present, breathing through the uncertainty, is already an act of courage. The heart learns in silence. It heals quietly. And love, in its truest form, does not rush toward conclusions. So if you find yourself lingering in between who you were and who you are becoming, know that this space is not empty. It is where growth happens. Hold on to that gently. Carry it with you. And when the world feels too heavy again, remember this moment, when you chose to stay, to feel, and to keep going. And as we reach the end of this story, remember this. Not every journey needs an audience, and not every kind of strength has to be loud. If you're still standing today, still trying, still choosing to move forward even in small steps, then you're doing enough. It's okay if you're tired. It's okay if you're unsure. What matters is that you didn't stop being honest with your heart. Thank you for staying until the end, for listening quietly, and for letting this story walk beside you for a moment. If this story found its way into your heart, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Diorpop, so we can continue telling stories that feel soft, human, and real. Until we meet again, take care of yourself, walk gently, and never stop believing in your own pace. See you in the next story.